Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. First of all, please like the stream, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. I think this channel, right now, it's sitting at 567 subs. So I'm knocking on the door of 600 for this channel. Ultimately, the goal is to get to 1,000, but the next milestone is actually 600. My sports channel has actually, amazingly, it's gotten to, I believe it's 800. I'm at 700 or 800 over there, and my original channel is at it's knocking on the door of 700. So, but in any case, this morning, I don't know who's going to tune in and watch this one. This is going to be a bit of a science talk. And we're going to venture into uncharted territory for this channel, though it's something that I thought about when I first started this channel. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Agrosciences, Botany, Ecology, and Farming. I have a guest who's going to be joining me at some point. He isn't in the back. He isn't backstage just yet, but I have some talking points that I want to get through before we start our interactive discussions. And let me get my questions ready here before he shows up. StreamYard is funny, man. You know, the way your guests just appear out of nowhere in the backstage. Okay, that's the wrong folder. There's the right folder. Okay, questions. Okay. So the Agrosciences, Botany, Ecology, and Farming. Where did all of this come from? Well, you know what? I'll start with the picture that was the background, and whenever my guest comes and whoever comes into the stream later on, this is the background I selected for the stream. What you're looking at right there is a field of monoculture corn. I've told you all in this audience that I work in regulatory affairs, and I actually work in, we regulate a part of Agrosciences. And I'll just keep it brief and say that we work with pesticides, and we try to protect the general population against toxicity from pesticides, because pesticides go on our on agricultural produce, and pesticides go. There are domestic and residential pesticide uses as well. For example, on golf courses, and also, for example, if you have a dog, your dog might have a collar. That's a pesticide usage. But in my current position, there are instances. I haven't gone on one recently, but we would have these things called crop tours. So when you work in regulatory affairs in the public sector, you're usually in a cubicle in an office, writing reports, going to meetings, you know, having dialogues with your coworkers, and sometimes with private industry. But in some instances, we get to go on crop tours, which are basically field trips out to farmland. It could be local farmland. It could be to a place like Wisconsin. They grow a lot of potatoes out in Wisconsin. They grow down in Florida, as you know, they grow a lot of citrus vegetables. I'm sorry, I said citrus vegetables, citrus fruits. In Florida, they grow citrus fruits. And there are some crops are specific to certain regions of the country. But if you drive through pretty much any state, you will see a cornfield. You know, I think Nebraska is the most famous for that. The University of Nebraska's football team is called the Cornhuskers. But in this particular crop tour, one of the farmers we visited, they were growing corn. So I took pictures, and this was one of my favorite pictures. This is a cornfield. I'm a city kid, so I didn't grow up in farmland, so it's completely foreign to me. But just being out there in farmland was fun. And looking at this picture gives me a certain amount of, I'll say a certain amount of zen. And this is monoculture corn. I'm going to describe what that is later. But basically, this corn is genetically similar. And there are reasons why why agriculture uses this to grow corn to feed everybody. And there are also reasons why growing monoculture corn is dangerous. But I'll talk a little bit about that later. So in terms of this discussion, and when my guest comes, he does some farming, so we're gonna talk about that. And he's someone who hangs out in the Black Manosphere space. This talk is kind of in the Black Manosphere space, but it's also out as well. But the reason this topic is important, it's important for general knowledge. It's important for if you know someone who's just getting into the sciences or has an aptitude for science. This is a vast career. There are a lot of careers in the agrosciences. I didn't understand that when I was growing up in Buffalo, and then I didn't understand that until I started my government career, my federal career right now. But as you'll see, this is a large billion-dollar industry, and it's how we all get fed. So it's just important for general knowledge, and also for individuals looking to get into a science career. So if you know someone who has that potential, and you watch this to its entirety, either live or on the playback, you might suggest, hey, that's something you can get into. So the overarching question for this live stream is going to be, where does our food come from? We know when we go to the store, the food is there. We know that when you go to the movie theater, there's popcorn there. If you want it, I get popcorn when I go to the theaters. We know that there's food at sporting events. We know that the food is there, but where does the food come from? How do we get fed? How do we stay alive in modern society? I'm going to start with my backgrounds. So as you all know, those who've seen me in these YouTube streets, you know that I'm known as Dr. Dunbar, and I have a background in pharmacology, and I have additional training in toxicology. So I have a research background in the biomedical sciences, similar to the scientist supreme, Nicole Ali. But that's just, pharmacology and toxicology are just smaller pieces, one small piece in the entire STEM acronym: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I see a comment here. I want to see who's here. Snuggle668. Good morning. Good morning, Snuggle. Thank you for being here. Pharmacology and toxicology are just one small part of the STEM acronym. There are other sciences within the S. There are many, many technologies under the T, and there are many, many engineering applications and fields under the M, under the E. And then in terms of the mathematics permeates everything else: the S, the T, and the E. So, and pharmacology and toxicology, in terms of the sciences, those are biomedical sciences. So those fall under biology, but there are other biological sciences. And we're going to talk about some of those today. But first, I'm going to say a few words about this. Look, we're going to do a little astronomy first before we get into the botany and the farming, because ultimately this is impacted by astronomy. So we know that in our solar system, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 planets. Used to be 9 until Pluto was demoted. But the Earth sits within what's called a habitable zone. So the Earth is it's the optimal distance from the sun, so that the Earth gets enough light and enough heat, but not too much so that it's impossible to have life here on the planet. The sun, it exerts a gravitational pull around all of these planets, which causes all the planets to orbit the sun. And the sun radiates light onto all the planets. And the Earth has an atmosphere which gives us, which filters out aspects of the sun's rays and gives us the visible light, which ranges from 400 to 700 nanometers. This allows us to see, and it also, as I'll describe, provides our food source. The Earth is divided into several spheres. You have the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, that's what we breathe, the biosphere, those are all living things, and the lithosphere, which consists of the soil, and it looks like the upper mantle and the oceanic crust. So there are various aspects of the planet Earth that we live on. But let's talk about the biosphere. The biosphere, that contains, or it encompasses, several kingdoms of living things. You have the Monera, which includes archaeobacteria and eubacteria. When I was looking at pictures, I saw actually there were some diagrams that separated the eubacteria from the archaeobacteria, the protista, the fungi, the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom. Now, I told you that my backgrounds are in pharmacology and toxicology. That means that in relation to this diagram, I made a choice in my career to hang out in the animal kingdom, because biology can visit any of these things. But when you're talking about human health, now you're hanging out in the animal kingdom. But there are whole fields of study and disciplines that just deal with the plant kingdom. And that's essentially where when you're talking about botany and agriculture and the agrosciences, you're in large part hanging out in the plant kingdom. I did get some education on the plant kingdom. That was at my HBCU, Johnson C. Smith University, JCSU. There, most of my science classes were here at the George E. Smith Science Hall. I can barely read that. There, I actually took courses in botany and ecology, and I got my first exposure to the plant sciences and those kinds of things. And that was, for the most part, spearheaded by the late Dr. Joseph A. Fail Jr. He was very passionate about plants and plant life and trees and the outdoors. And I think at that time, going into my undergraduate education, the only thing I thought about, and I think the most of us who were there, we only thought about the biological sciences in terms of going to medical school and human health, going to dental school, going to medical school. We only thought about it in terms of those kinds of things. And so I didn't give a serious look to the plant sciences. And as I'll describe, there's a lot of money and there's a lot of potential for employment and investing in the plant sciences. This is the greenhouse that out behind our science hall at my HBCU. The last time I went to homecoming pre-COVID, it was still there. Dr. Fail hung out there quite a bit. As you can see, it's kind of tore up. Things are growing out of it. It kind of looked that way when I was an undergraduate, but yeah, we spent a lot of time there in that greenhouse, and it's still there. I'm sure your HBCU, if you have one, or even your PWI, has a greenhouse just like this. So I just a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, I shot a video on transcription and translation. Nicole gave this video a shout out last night on her live stream. When you make videos, you never know who's watching, but this refers to how the very, very basic process of all living things. All living things have DNA. That DNA transcribes RNA, and that RNA goes into the cytoplasm and creates a protein. And the proteins do everything that you need to survive. I call the proteins our workhorses. This is an animal cell. I've shown these diagrams before on my channel, but what I haven't shown, what's new and novel for this live stream, is this here. This is a plant cell. And as you could tell, I'm going to go back to the animal cell really quickly so you can compare, according to this diagram, the animal cell is a little more circular. It's round. And if you look under a microscope, and this depends on the animal cell type, some are polarized, some have a apical membrane, some have a basolateral membrane, some are cube shaped. It just depends on the cell type. Most plant cells are square shaped or rectangular. And if you look under a microscope, you do in fact see this type of thing. When you look at plant tissue leaves under a microscope, it's actually very, very beautiful to look at. It's almost like you're looking at a green light, and you see just these sequences of these long cuboidal structures. Similar to the animal cell, the plant cell has a nucleus, a rough endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, Golgi apparatuses, lysosomes, mitochondria. But what makes them unique is the presence of chloroplasts. And inside those chloroplasts are chlorophyll. And that's the pigment that allows plants to trap a portion of the visible light spectrum to undergo the process of photosynthesis. And that's depicted in this diagram here. Photosynthesis, you're taking light energy, and the plant and animal cells can't do this. This is why we need plant life. The plant cells undergo photosynthesis, and they create oxygen, which we breathe, and they create glucose, which is the most basic energy source for all of our cells. So again, plant cells, plants, they create oxygen and glucose. And then in our mitochondria, and even in the plant's mitochondria, that glucose is metabolized to form ATP, which I'll show you in a second. But after, through the process of cellular respiration, carbon dioxide and water are generated. And these are two of the most basic processes of all living things on our planet. When I woke up this morning, I kind of threw this live stream together this morning. I started last night putting the pictures together. But this, going back to my HBCU, this, just like transcription and translation, this is forever etched into my memory. Once again, acknowledging the late Dr. Joseph Fail Jr. This is the chemical depiction of photosynthesis and respiration. So what the plant does is it takes the sunlight and it takes carbon dioxide, which we exhale. All organisms in the animal kingdom exhale or give off carbon dioxide in some way. It takes the carbon dioxide in the water, and it takes the light, and it converts those into glucose and oxygen. And then during respiration, cellular respiration, that carbon, that glucose and that oxygen are used to create ATP, which I'll show you in a second, giving rise to carbon dioxide and water. So the reactants for one side are the products for the other side. Now, keep in mind, in terms of respiration, There are two of those. There's actually, I'll call it physiological respiration, when you're actually breathing. When you're playing basketball or running, you have to breathe, you're respiring. And then there's cellular respiration, which is in the mitochondria down on the cellular level. So there's two contexts for those. Hey, what's going on, Sheed? What's going on, Doug? Alex Dilworth is here as well. Okay. Still waiting on my guest. Hope he comes up. I might have to check my email to see if he's had a delay, but I have enough slides to take me through to about a half hour at least. ATP, this is the glucose is broken down in the cell. And Nicole might have covered this on her channel at some point, to ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This is the actual energy source that all of the processes in our cells run on. So this is, when you eat, when you consume food, your cells are breaking that food, typically a sugar source, down into this molecule. And pretty much every process in your cells runs on this. And your body has ways of breaking down fat to this as well. So let's segue into botany. Botany, and this is important when we talk about the agrosciences and farming and those kinds of things. Botany, this is the study of plants, how plants reproduce, the different species of plants, how plants grow, where plants grow, those kinds of things. So this is a very, very broad discipline, but this is basically plant science. It's not horticulture, as one of my ex-girlfriends told me. One time, I think I was talking about science, and she said, "Oh yeah, I know what that is. I took a class in horticulture. This is different than horticulture. That's botany." What's also germane to this discussion is going to be ecology. And again, I got my first trainings in ecology and botany at my HBCU. Now, when you think about ecology, you want to think about things living together and how things live together and coexist. You want to think about food chains. You want to think about how populations survive and what happens when one population is removed from a system. So, for example, in this diagram, you see that the alligator eats, I didn't know alligators ate turtles, but I just ripped this one off of Google. But you see the alligator can eat the turtle. I think the turtle eats can eat the snake, and the snake eats that mosquito. And on the other side, the alligator can eat that pelican, and I think the pelican and that duck, they eat the fish. If you remove that fish, then you will lose the duck and the pelican because they don't have anything to eat. And then if you remove those, then the alligator has nothing to eat. So that whole ecosystem can collapse by just removing the fish out of the system. What happens if you remove the duck or the pelican out of the system? If you remove those, well, the fish can become overgrown and they can overwhelm their food source. If you remove that pelican and that duck, then the alligator has nothing to eat. So the alligator can go into extinction. So that's ecology. It's how things fit together. It's how different populations fit together. And it's the study. It looks at if you remove something, what's that going to do to the neighboring populations? And you're tending to look at food chains. So you have producers, which are usually the plants, and you have consumers, a large chain of consumers running up from there. But usually at the bottom, when you look at diagrams relating to ecology, you're looking at producers on the bottom. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to check my email here to see if sometimes with this, when you're doing StreamYard, sometimes you're in different time zones. So 10 a.m. on the East Coast is actually 9 a.m. on Central Time. So no emails here. So I think he'll show up at some point. Okay, So let's go back to, so that's ecology. So let's go back to the agrosciences and the agrosciences industry. So this is monoculture corn. I showed you this in the beginning. This is another picture. This is in Southern Ontario. I used to drive from Michigan over to Buffalo between, on breaks, and I would pass through these fields. I love those big turbines, by the way. This is agrosciences. This is how our food is grown. And this could be potatoes, tomatoes. This could be citrus fruits. It could be anything. But there, as I'll show you, there's a lot that goes into this. This is a picture of the organic farming of carrots. This is corn. This is that looks like lettuce. This looks like organic farming of lettuce. This is the organic farming of onions. And this is the organic farming of, that looks like some sort of herb. This is a picture I took at one of our crop tours. BG just shared the video. Oh, the pressure, more people are going to come. So this is a picture I took during that crop tour, and it might have actually been in this corn field. And this underscores the fact that this underscores a bit of ecology here, because what you have is when you have a large field of some sort of commodity growing, as a farmer, you just don't have that commodity out there sitting. There are critters running around, there are rodents running around, there are numerous insect species out there floating around, and in some instances, there are insect species laying eggs on those that foliage. So corn, when you grow corn, you grow these long stalks, and you have the foliage shooting out, and then the ears of corn start to grow in the midst of that foliage. But if you turn some of those leaves over, in some instances, you may see larvae for some sort of insect species. And I'm going to discuss why that's important when I talk about the agrosciences in more depth, which I think I will do right now. The agrosciences. So what are the agrosciences? So these are the sciences, to my understanding, that basically this is where our food comes from. And these are the sciences that go into where the production of our food. And keep in mind that even if you're talking about your proteins, your livestock, your poultry, your pork, if you eat that, those are being fed with vegetable and plant matter. So this is not just feeding us, but it's also feeding our livestock. So the sciences that are involved in this are botany. Obviously, you want to know, you want to grow something, you want to optimize the growth of that. And when I talk about GMO, which I believe stands for genetically modified organisms, that's a botany thing, because you have to, let's say you want to grow a certain strain of corn, you have to understand everything about that corn. And a part of that is the genetics of it. Ecology, you want to control, you want to have a feeling for, if you're going to, for example, in this instance, in traditional agriculture, if you're going to grow a whole field of corn, you want to know or have an idea of what's going to be out there with the corn. Are there going to be birds, avians floating around, picking off the corn? What insect species are going to move in there? What weeds are going to potentially sprout up and kill your harvest before it grows to maturity? That's all ecology. And as my guest, he talked about, he's done some farming. He was very passionate and charged up about his worms. So I think for the type of farming he's doing, worms are a major part of his whatever it is he's growing, because those worms, they play a role in that ecosystem that he's using to grow his produce. If he comes up, that's one of the questions I want to ask him. Ecotoxicology, that's going to fit into something I'll show on the next slide. So what things as a farmer are you putting into the environment that may kill off other things? What things are running off into standing water and running water that we as humans might consume, or that fish might consume, or that some other organism might consume. Entomology, I might have misspelled that. That's the study of bugs and insects. And as a farmer, you, in many instances, you're trying to control those populations, because if you have a whole field of corn or strawberries or something that those insects like, they will get in there and consume the whole thing. Also, there are instances where certain insect species are necessary to help you grow your harvest and your produce. I'm thinking about honeybees. Honeybees play a huge role in some agricultural ecosystems in terms of generating whichever produce that is. So in those instances, farmers want to protect those populations of honeybees. Environmental sciences, that's kind of related to ecotoxicology. There again, if you're a farmer, I'm going to talk about pesticides in a second, but if you're using pesticides, some of those are what we call persistent, which means they hang around for a long period of time. And in some instances, they leach through the soil into groundwater and into ponds and into running water, where other things can ingest those things. And if it's something that's really toxic, you can kill off a lot of things. Sometimes pesticides, they degrade into metabolites, actually degradates. They degrade into degradates that could be more toxic than the parent. So that's environmental science. You know, you're introducing a chemical into the environment. What's it doing? How long does it stay around? Does it go away? Is it killing something else? Meteorology. This might surprise you that this would be involved here, but in agriculture, you have to have an understanding of the growing seasons, and you have to have an understanding of what happens if and when frosts come in. And often, again, there's a growing season, which can span from 9 months, and it varies, and the products they use typically have a number of applications that farmers can use throughout the year. Let me say this slowly. Parasitology, parasites. When you're growing some sort of commodity, you have to be concerned about not just insects, but also funguses. What can start growing on your potatoes or carrots, or if it's a fruit such as apples, what out there can grow on it when it's growing, and even during storage, because oftentimes when they harvest these things from the field, they go into some sort of storage warehouse or some sort of silo. Well, things can start. I'm thinking about potatoes right now. Things can start growing on that produce as it's stored before it goes to market. And then technologies and systems. I will show you some pictures of how agriculture is becoming more technologically advanced. We tend to think of it as, farmers out riding around on tractors and, tilling the soil and tossing seeds out. But as I'll show you, this is getting, along with everything else, this is getting very digital. and it's getting very technologically advanced. And in my last video, this is going to be impacted by things like the IoT and even, I believe, our 5G networks as everything becomes automated. The agrosciences industry, this is a business, and this is a major part of our country. This is a major part of our economy. I didn't realize this until I started working in regulatory affairs. They're even just the human health aspect of this is a major cost for agricultural companies like Dow or Syngenta, or what's another one? Dow, Syngenta, BASF, and you have foreign companies as well. But this is a billion-dollar industry. Going back to botany, there are companies that create seeds. They create optimal seeds for growing. The technology, tractors, objects that spray chemicals, all kinds of things, computer systems, pesticide development. Let me show you something really quickly. I used to be an adjunct professor at a university, and this was one of the slides that I used. And it's not, I think this was on this is from an older PowerPoint presentation, so it's not to scale. But anyway, pesticides are bioactive molecules similar to drugs. So as you know, most of your drugs have some sort of biological or molecular mechanism. Pesticides are the same way. And this is all available online. So these are not trade secrets at this point. You can Google these chemicals, but they all have some sort of mechanism, such as inhibition of mitochondria, inhibition of mitochondria, inhibition of ATP, inhibition of cell wall synthesis, inhibition of kinases, and in some instances, inhibition of heme, which plants actually use to perform their functions. I'm going to go over a few more slides, and then my guest still hasn't come up. GMO. This is something everyone was somewhat worried about, and this is something folks are still worried about. GMO stands for genetically modified organism. And these are these are the 10 GMO crops. I did not know all this before I put this slide together, but it looks like we have corn, potatoes, soybeans, canola, sugar beets, apples, papayas, alfalfa, squash, cotton. I think corn is the most famous. And what you're doing here in terms of a pesticide is that you usually have a chemical that's going to your wild type organism. Your wild type plant organism is going to metabolize and kill itself. But for your GMO crop, you've deleted that enzyme and that gene out so that your GMO crop can survive while the wild type dies off. So that's GMO. That's all it is. I don't think it's that big a deal if that's what you're doing. So you're basically selecting for one over the other. Now that brings us back to monoculture corn. I'll pull this picture up and why that's dangerous. Let me look at the comment section here. Tutriv, Sheed, Diaspora, would you say the technology's advancement of agriculture and GMO synonymous or independent from each other? Well, the GMO, that is a that is a technological advance, because that's genetics. You're splicing out a gene from an organism. So yes, those are synonymous. She says the University of Georgia Agricultural Department is big in acres for research. Yep, this is a major sector. This is a major industry. This is huge. So that's GMO. I think we'll jump to technologies next. Let me check my email again, because I don't have much more. Let's see. Okay, I have an email. Okay, I have a picture here about flowers. So I think he's still coming. He just sent me a picture. Let's see, where was I? GMO. Oh, why is this dangerous? Why is GMO dangerous? So if you have this is monoculture, and when you hear mono, that means one, it means singular. And so when you're growing a monoculture crop, they're all the same. Each of those corn crops sprouting out of the ground are genetically the same. So if you have something come along that each of those guys cannot protect themselves against, the whole crop will get wiped out. So, and that's the importance of having a genetically diverse population. So I guess we're going back to ecology a little bit here, and genetics. So this is while there are advantages to creating a monoculture crop, there are dangers to it as well. Because if you have because plants get sick just like animals do. So if you have something that can come through and wipe the whole thing out, well, the whole thing is wiped out. So which may result in mass hunger, which is the worst case scenario. Hey, if anyone, if you're new to the stream, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Please like the stream. Please share. If you want to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App is here. I'm going to get into some of the technologies next. I know we have a lot of tech guys. Let's see. My guest sent me an email. Let me respond to him right quick and ask him if he's still coming. Okay. Let's see. Let me go back to my slideshow here. That's GMO. Let's talk a little bit about technologies. I left a video under this video in the description box. It's called The Future of Farming. I wanted to show some of it, but I haven't mastered the fair use thing. I showed a video over on my sports channel, and they copyright claimed it. But one of the things that I was making a video about the IoT, the Internet of Things, and I was getting ready for this particular live stream, and I watched that video, and that video was embedded on a blog post on my blogging platform. And that video showed how some of the technologies are now infiltrating the agricultural industry. So it showed drones out in fields working in agriculture. So we're going to a place now where you're going to have drones out controlling the irrigation of crops, the application of pesticides. Here's another picture. There, that's a drone flying around a field. This picture I thought was kind of compelling as well. And I think these are all in the video. You'll have drones out flying around, and in some instances, they show this in the video, picking out produce from the ground and also applying pesticides. And keep in mind, these are things that humans were doing. So this is in part automation. And these are things that machines may be doing for us entirely in another 10 years or so, maybe less. let's see. I left these blog posts below talking about the Internet of Things. I just shot a video on that, and this has applications for what we're talking about now. Let's see. This one talks about agribusiness and keeping costs down. That's where I found that video. And I'm going to end my little slideshow here with, we're going to talk about aquaponics and hydroponics farming, because this is where another place that the agriculture is going. And this is something that I may revisit further on my channel with individuals who are very knowledgeable in this field and who are doing this. This is aquaponics, and Johnson C. Smith University, my alma mater, they have some of this going on there. This is another way of farming. So you have a tank at the bottom with fish. Fish, as anyone who's had a fish tank knows, that the fish generate their own wastes, fecal matter, and also ammonia. And every once in a while, you have to clean that water, or else it'll become too toxic for the fish. So, let me see. He didn't answer. So the water becomes too toxic for the fish. So in aquaponics, what you can do is you can take the toxic water from the fish, the wastewater, and we know that plants use things like nitrogen for their own processes, and they use, fertilizer, which is fecal matter from terrestrial organisms. So you take that water and you spray it over here in this system over here where the plants are growing into the soil. That's food for the plants, or those are nutrients for the plants. So you're getting rid of this wastewater, and then you give clean water back to the fish. So this is basically a closed recirculating system, and that's aquaponics. And crops are being grown like this now in 2020. Okay, Doug says, I'll put the comment up. We're all learning here. Doug says with aquaponics, the nitrogen cycle is self-sustaining. Okay. And then what I'm going to show you guys now, this is my last picture. I'll throw the link in the chat if someone wants to come up. I don't see Irv here. This is hydroponic farming. So, and I saw this for the first time when we went on a crop tour. And so if you notice, you have rows and rows. That's probably lettuce. You're in an enclosed space, an enclosed facility, and you have these plants growing out of these long rows. And what's in those rows are water containing nutrients. So you have no soil. So this is kind of like in vitro farming. You're not in the field. You're not out, where critters are running around, where avians are running around. This is happening in a enclosed structure, soil free. And this is something that they're doing now, and it's apparently a very, very efficient way of farming and performing agriculture. So that's all I've got. Let's see, we are 50 minutes in. I'm going to check my email one more time, because Irv is doing some farming himself, and I was going to ask him about what he's doing and how he's doing it, because I was excited to hear Irv talk about what he was doing over on the Roger Report. I think he was talking about it over there amongst some of the other things they were doing. But what's been happening this year in 2020, one of the big discussions that has been taking place during the pandemic has involved the supply chains. So that's referring to how our food is getting to the supermarket. So for those of us who live in city centers, if those supply chains break down, how would we get our food to survive? There were stories about the meat packing plants, the workers getting sick. So that's one aspect of the food of the supply chain that was gonna get disrupted. I don't think it was disrupted in any meaningful way. But the question is, if for those of us who live in city centers, if our supply chains break down, if the farms break down, or if something related to getting the food to our supermarkets so we can get it breaks down, how are we going to feed ourselves? So I've just been thinking this year about, okay, what things do I need to learn about so I can, I don't know, sustain myself? And I've considered moving, I don't know, maybe leaving the city centers and moving out to more secluded locations, and maybe doing things like farming to some degree. My dad, who's a bit of a contrarian, told me, well, if you move out there, who's going to find you if something bad happens to you? Which is a valid question. But, this year has made me think about a lot of things. I just dropped a link in the chat. If anyone wants to come up and ask some questions or say a few words, you're welcome to do so. If Irv comes, I'll drop everyone else down because I have some questions for him. But if anyone else wants to come in and say a few words, it sounds like Doug has had some experience with agriculture himself. But in terms of careers, again, when I was at my HBCU, I did not give a strong look at agriculture and the Agrosciences and Botany and Ecology, because my mind, coming from where I came from, I was thinking strictly about, medicine and going to medical school and those kinds of things. So I was thinking only about human health. But there is a ton of opportunity in these fields. And when you see working in regulatory affairs, we do interact with scientists and professionals from the chemical companies, because it's typically the chemical companies who are in this sector. Most of the scientists they send over are not of African descent. They don't look like us. So this is another area where we are underrepresented. I have a comment here by Diaspora L. I'm going to read this. Rural life is the new contemporary living standard, or at least can be with technology. So, yeah, so this is a big sector. It's a sector that we need. It's a sector that we cannot live without, because everybody needs to eat for sustenance, and everybody needs to, everybody needs to eat. And if you watch that video below this video on the future of farming, one of the things that it says is that the human population, the global population, is going to continue to increase. To what level, I don't know, but they're going to have to become more savvy, and they're going to have to figure out how to continue to feed people. Let me take a look over here on my email account. Nope, no word from my guest. I'm going to go out to another 5 minutes or so. I think he lives on the East Coast, so 10 a.m. 10 a.m. should have been 10 a.m. for me, should have been 10 a.m. for him. But just on the off chance that 10 a.m. was Central Time for him, I'm going to go a little bit further. Does anyone have any questions there in the chat while we wait a little bit longer? Again, I My background is in the biomedical sciences, so I can speak to the agricultural industry to some degree, but I'm not an expert on it. Let's see. There he is. Let me read this comment here. You know what? That might be. You know what? That might be a good alternative, as if you don't want to go back into the workforce due to vaccine doubt. All right, everyone. My guest is here. I'm going to bring him up, and I'm going to get my pen and pencil and my notepad ready so I can take some notes from him. Irv Gotti, what's going on, man? Good morning. Irv, you're muted. Irv, are you there? Irv, if you're talking, I can't hear. 1 second. Let me check my sound. No, my sound is working. You wanna drop down and come back in? Technology. Okay. So let's keep our fingers crossed that when Irv comes back in, we can hear him, because if we can't, I don't know. All right, there he is. Keep your fingers crossed.
Hey, can you hear me now?
All right, there we go. Yep, I can hear you.
Oh man, this is amazing. I'm so sorry I was late. I'm on mountain time, so it's 9:57 here. I really tried to be on time, my brother. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. You know what? I was thinking, maybe we're on different time zones, but I was able to keep it going for an hour. So
wow, you did amazing, brother.
Oh, right.
I actually was just did you get that picture I sent you in the email?
I just did. Let me I'll pull it down and I'll put it up.
We'll start there. We'll start right there. Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second here. So what are you out in Colorado or something, or
I'm actually in Texas. And the thing about it, I'm supposed to be leaving out for Oklahoma today. So like I said, I've been packing up because I have to work for this hospital out in Oklahoma, but I'm gonna be going back and forth. So we're really going to be talking about urban / we're going to be talking about simple farming right now, because I think people get so afraid of farming. We're going to talk about the simple, fun part of farming, the scientific, fun part of it.
Okay. Give me 1 second, Irv. Let's see.
But however, to keep things going, for the picture that he's going to pull up, it's more of a tulip type, open type, cone type flower. And the reason why you need these type flowers in your garden, and the reason why you need to plant flowers, is because flowers will promote bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, pollinating type. You need pollination. And that's what happens. And when you get, see these right here, so you look at them, if you look at how this is my yard actually, so if you look at this actually tulip type plant, because honestly, I can't go into each individual, because I plant flowers just because I know what they can do. I don't know what individual, there's so many flowers, there's thousands of flowers. You see how open that flower is at the top? When it rains, wherever you live at, when it rains, this flower will literally drink water. What would happen is bees, butterflies, hummingbirds. I mean, you can live in New York and just put these flowers out, and you'd be surprised at the vegetation, the flying vegetation that'll come by and start visiting these plants, which fertilizes everything in your surrounding area. So this is something that you can even do in the city. Like you putting one of these little flowers out in a flower plot out on your balcony will get at least will get so many visitors to that area, and they'll start pollinating any little plant they can find around there. It even works for cities.
Okay. Let me take this down for now.
But we have to get to the most important thing, though. We can probably do a whole live stream about the most important thing. And the most important thing is not dirt. People will tell you, oh, you grow things in dirt. No, you do not grow things in dirt. You grow things in soil. If around the agricultural / botany community, if you use the word dirt, they'll kind of laugh. If you use dirt in the wrong words, they'll kind of laugh at you. Because dirt can be used as dirt is you can use dirt. Dirt is what is turned into soil. You can take dirt, manure, leaves, and what happens is you have to feed the ground with it's all broken down by worms. Worms are probably the most important thing that we can talk about right now. Is worms. And this is where black men can really get in early with worms. And this can become a business for you, brothers. And we're going to talk about it.
Okay. In this diagram I picked here, there's a worm right there at the bottom. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So, Irv, do you want to do a quick Q&A?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So thanks for joining me. What is we know you have an interest in agriculture, and farming and worms, as you'll discuss. Mm-hmm. But what's your actual background in terms of career and profession? Didn't you say that you're in health? Yes,
sir. I'm a nurse. I've worked orthopedics to trauma to cardiac. So I've worked all over the healthcare field, and the thing about it is I understand drugs probably better than any drug dealer. And I understand that drugs come from the earth. And I understand that the only way that you can start building anything is if you start having a good earth. But I understand that the drugs that we have in the healthcare field aren't technically helping. So I noticed that all my co-workers and even myself started looking at eating organically and growing our own food. And I was like, so if we're growing our own food, trying to find our own medicine, why are we pumping drugs in people in this hospital? And it really struck me different. I looked at myself professionally and I realized I love people, and I picked a profession that was going to help me economically a little bit, but it's starting to get diluted with the bad things. And I started seeing the people that provide that care doing something different than what they were providing.
Okay. Now, what got you interested in farming? Because it sounds like you're very passionate about that.
And that's what got me interested in farming, because I grew up in North Carolina in the country, and I realized, and people are lied to you, and they tell you that our ancestors died early. They actually didn't die early. A lot of them lived to be very elderly and old, like 80, 90, 100. I mean, so we started living really bad. We started eating really bad to the point where we started needing medications to control our horrible diet. And I realized that when I was living back in North Carolina, eating those little collard greens from the local farmer, rutabagas and chickens and hogs that were raised just right there with the people, I realized everyone was healthier. So, and then when I realized that my coworkers were doing the same thing, it made me realize when I was an ambitious kid, wanting to have a garden, play football, basketball all day. So that's what I got back to, my ambitious childlike mentality of playing in the dirt.
Okay. Well, which part of Carolina are you from? You from the western part I went to Smith.
I'm actually from the eastern North Carolina. I'm from a city called Kinston.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But now I live in Texas, and I live in Dallas, Texas, and I'm seeing it become such a concrete environment. That's why I'm happy to be going out to Oklahoma for a little bit. But there's ways to still have agriculture in all these environments.
Okay. So it sounds like you saw that we were getting our diets were becoming too artificial, too man-made, and you just had a general interest in going back to nature.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, let me pull this picture up. Let me ask you this question in the meantime. What so what do you so are you growing in your backyard? Are you growing things in your backyard, or like where do you
Actually, let me tell you, man, like there's this new wave in the botany community of using grow bags. And you can grow literally anywhere, but I'm growing all around my yard, front, side, back, everywhere. Yeah, I grow all around my yard.
So what's a grow bag?
A grow bag. Oh, so they actually have these black bags, which the black bags are very fundamental because they draw sunlight. And the grow bag is it's like a 1 gallon bag that you can put the best soil in. You can control the soil, and you can plant, and you can actually uproot or start a plant in that grow bag. It's just it's like, let's say if you went to the regular Piggy Wiggly food line, any grocery store, and they gave you a plastic bag. No, matter of fact, Aldi's makes you bring your bag back and forth, right? So let's say they give you a bag that you can take back and forth, but you can carry a plant in with good soil. That's all it is, and it's biodegradable, and it breaks down. You can even take the bag as you get the plant growing in the bag, and dig it, and actually dig your hole and plant the bag with the already growing plant in the ground, and it all breaks down and keep going from there.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
So you pretty much, well, you choose what you want to grow.
Yes.
And what are you growing?
Well, I'm I'm growing a collard, a squash, a cucumber. See, the thing about it is you have to grow the best things to grow are the things that are native to your area. I mean, trying to you can always, some plants can, weeds like onions, things like that are easy to transport, weeds, but actual plants like vegetation are hard to migrate to different climates and different locations. They really need their environment to be suitable for what you're trying to grow. So I just tell every person to look at what's suitable for your environment. A cucumber pretty much grow anywhere. An apple tree will almost grow anywhere as well.
Okay, so everyone, this is why I showed this slide earlier. No, that's the wrong one. That's why I showed this slide earlier, because what Irv is talking about is pulling together a bunch of different things, a little bit of environmental sciences, a little bit of understanding meteorology and climate. So everything can't grow everywhere. And he talked about the worms, and we're going to come back to that.
We have to go back to the worms.
That's a bit of ecology. You know, you're talking about different organisms working together, and I'm sure there's a reason why these are important. And I think that's the next question. So Irv, so talk about you. Well, hold on, before we go to the worms, I heard you on I think it was Roger's panel. You were talking about collards being able to collect water from the atmosphere.
Yeah, so if you look at a collard, it looks just like that last plant, that last flower I showed you, right?
Yeah.
Look at a collard plant; it's very open, right? Collards, cabbages are very open plants. So when you look at those, they can actually pull a little bit more water from the atmosphere. You see how it's built? So think about, a collard is pretty much a bunch of those over and over and over and over and over again, just in a bigger bundle. So a collard can take in so much water that makes it can honestly survive in a climate that's, I mean, it will thrive in a more humid, rainier climate, but it will also grow in a drier climate as well, because you can grow collards in Texas. They grow collards in Texas. Now, the best collards I have had are from Louisiana, North Carolina, South Carolina. It's a little bit more humid, but don't get me wrong, these collards in Texas are still edible. And it's a different climate though. You know, it's drier in Texas than it is in down there in Louisiana, in South Carolina, and in Mississippi, In North Carolina, it's a little bit more humid over there. In Texas, is a little bit more drier, but the collard still grow here, and they're still good to go.
Okay. You know what? I never knew that. I honestly never knew that. Okay, let's talk about the star of the show here. What, when you think of worms, going back to my childhood, I would think of these things, man, and just being the most gross things, but it sounds like they play a very, very important role.
No, they literally are the most important role. If you look at what things are indestructible, is a lot of these things are indestructible is what people use to grow this earth. Roaches, beetles, and worms. Worms are just cleaner than roaches, and worms are cleaner than beetles. So they're the easiest to deal with.
Okay, so what in terms of the farming, why do you need these?
Well, I'm glad you had this picture up, because you see where these things literally eat through all of that dirt and all that clump and all that dryness. It turns into, for some odd reason, everything that turns black, Caucasians refer to as gold. So what these worms will do, they'll take all that brown dirt and they'll digest it, and the juices inside their gut will make this black soil full of nutrients. And what comes from this is what we call a worm tea. You can harvest worm tea daily, and that can become a source of income for you, because some people don't want to have worms, but they want to grow plants organically. So if you have just a tub of worms in your closet with your feeding newspaper, they'll create a worm juice daily. You can turn that into, you can bottle that, sell that, because it's a natural, organic, hyper. It's like going Super Saiyan if you were looking at Dragon Ball Z for plants, what they break down and do. And then the soil, the compost from what they do. See, the tea is like, if you were to look at this economically, the tea is like silver. The actual soil that they make is like gold. And then they make this stuff called compost, and compost is like really sticky soil that you can ball up. That's almost like gold and platinum together. That is just amazing. If you get compost, once you start getting compost from a worm, that's better than gold and silver. You can now feed your family, because you can put a seed. Because you hear men say, "Oh, I want to put my seed in good soil." No. A seed is like an egg. You as a man, you're like the worm, especially the black man. You're like the worm. You have to eat through everything and turn something into nothing. You got to turn nothing into something. That seed will not survive if you don't turn something out of nothing. And that's what worms do. That is nothing. That worm will make it something.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that it sounds like the worms, they're recycling everything, they're prepping the soil, they're making it suitable for the plants to grow.
Yes, without the worms, none of this happens. The worms break down the soil. They have this their digestive system is just, it's so impeccable. Like the human digestive system it can go through a whole lot, but their digestive system is so straightforward, and it breaks down things so fine that it just turns into richness where you can't help but grow. If you the more you give soil to a worm, it turns into like a coffee grain, and it really finds it out, so air can move through the soil. They're still down there breaking up, creating juices and nutrients for the soil. You can actually do more with worms than you can do with any pesticide. Because I looked at a bag of soil that you can buy from like Home Depot or Lowe's, and you see these little white balls in there. What these little white balls are, it's little styrofoam that they put nutrients in. That's faking what a worm naturally does. That worm will put larvae in the soil, little white baby worms that will grow and be big worms and big red worms, or what we call night crawlers. And they're trying to mimic in a bag what you can do naturally.
Okay, so everyone, I'm gonna show this picture again to kind of drive home what Irv was talking about. But first, I want to thank Douglas Coppage for the Cash App. Much appreciated. This kind of drives home. This is ecology. Well, it's agriculture, but it's also ecology. What Irv is talking about, because this entire food chain here, without that worm, no plant life. That soil's not suitable for the plant life to grow, and then whatever feeds off that plant life, that can't eat, and then whatever eats that can't eat. So, again, as a child, I remember thinking these things were the grossest things, but it turns out they play a very, very, very important role.
They do. And you saw next, it was the beetle, right? The beetle is amazing, but they're harder to keep. That worm. The reason why I really want men, especially black men, to look into worms is because of what they can do with worms. A worm in itself is 4 forms of economics. You can start selling worms, bag worms, so people that start their own worm farms. That's one way. You can sell the worm tea. You can sell the castings, which has the baby larvae in it, and you can also sell the decompost, the soil. That's 4 forms of economics off one worm. And that's not even including when you start growing.
Okay. So there are a number of income streams just off the worm.
Yeah, that's what's actually, I hate to say it, that's what I'm not going to bring up the name of that community, but that community, there's a community of people right now pumping worms. And if you knew anything about trying to feed your family, you figure out how to get you some worms and some grow bags. It don't matter if you live in a big city. You can live in New York right now, and you can literally control you can literally live in New York right now and be growing some bananas in your closet, because you can control the environment with soil. That's the beautiful thing about what Colorado has actually taught us. Half them grow rooms in Colorado are not outside. A lot of them are indoors. So they're growing that cash crop. We know that cash crop they're growing out there. And that cash crop definitely needs a controlled environment. You can start growing cabbages, collards, and a banana, and some peppers, and some tomatoes right there in your right there in your closet. Pull them out, put them by the light. They even have grow lights. There's so much that you can be doing right now to feed you can feed yourself for 6 months off your closet. Take all the Jordans out, take all the rats, keep the rats, because that's different areas for you to grow. Take all the Jordans out, put you some daggone plants up in there, put some good soil and some worms in that soil to feed your plants, and you good to go, baby.
Wow. So Irv, so the worms, when they go through the soil, are they feeding themselves?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They're feeding themselves, but you also have to feed the worms to keep the worms going. And worms literally eat anything. They don't like citrus. They don't really like citrus, like stuff. They don't like orange peelings and oranges and stuff like that. But like egg, like this is the beautiful thing about it, man. You can cook yourself some eggs, man. Take them eggs and throw it over your daggone worm compost. You can eat some chicken, anything. They just don't like citrus fruit, but banana peelings, apple peelings, old pancakes. You eat the whole pancake with too much, anything, bro. It's they literally a garbage. They're literally a garbage disposal.
Okay,
they eat the earth, so they have to be a garbage disposal.
Now, when you say eggs, are you referring to the shells or the actual? Give them some of what you cooked in the skillet.
No. The shell.
The shells.
Yeah, and know what, that newspaper that you tired of reading?
Yeah.
Throw it up there too.
Wow.
They'll go through it. After you break down you get. I know it literally. They like newspaper. They like tree trimmings, they like leaves. They eat plastic. Matter of fact, when you go grocery shopping, rather than throwing your bags away, just throw the bags inside there. Rather than throw your plastic bottles in there, they'll eat through plastic bottles. They eat through all of that. But the thing about it, for them to eat through plastic bottles and stuff like that, because they're worms, they have to break it down.
Yeah.
Go ahead and if you would grind it up or shred it up, they can decompose it faster. So that's the reason why they just tell you to grind everything up to promote them to go ahead and eat through it. They're almost like not goats eat anything. Worms eat anything with less square footage.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that they could do that with plastic.
They eat through anything.
They eat through anything.
Anything.
Okay. Well, Irv, I have one more question. And if anyone wants to come up and ask a question as well or say a few words, yeah, I'll do that. I want to thank Sheed for the Cash App. My last question is, so you may have answered it already. What advice would you give someone who is curious about learning about farming, and where should one start? But it sounds like you can just go buy what you want,
okay,
and plant it in your home. But go ahead.
If you want to get started farming in your own home right now, just go get you a regular pot. Let's get you a pot. I mean, it don't even got to be. You can pick something that you can contain something with. So if you have a stone, say if you have a stone at the house, fill that stone up with good soil and plant and figure out what you want to grow in your environment. Let's say, so where you living at? So I mean, give me so you like Michigan, right? So let's say let's just throw Michigan out there, right?
All right.
So Michigan is known for their apples, right?
Yep.
Y'all grow good apples in Michigan. So what you could do is, if you want an apple tree right now, in Michigan, just get you a daggone grow bag. Go to Home Depot, any store, get you a grow bag. Do not get the soil that they sell at these stores. Now you can use their grow bags, but do not use their soil, because the soil is what counts. The soil, the worms is what really counts. You can get seeds from anywhere, preferably organic seeds from a natural grower or somebody, but those are harder to find. But you can actually get seeds from anywhere. The main thing is looking in your local environment to find soil. If you live in a northern environment where you can't get soil, this is why I'm telling you have to go with worms. You can get worms, some regular dirt, and some newspaper and some water, and they will create the soil that you need to start feeding yourself. So I hate to say it, Dr. Dunbar, but if you want to start farming, start worming. That's the first. I honestly, I'm gonna start preaching that as step one. Because I mean, what's the point of getting good seeds? What's the point of telling people to have grow beds and all these and grow bags if they have bad soil? Because if you have bad soil, you're not going to do anything. Wow. And that's something that I've learned the hard way. Bad soil is everything. You can, even if you don't water the plant like you should, good soil will save you. Good soil will save you if you don't water the plant like you should. And some people get too busy, especially urban farming, they don't water the plant like they should. You need good soil because it will save you when it'll save you, and it'll help you through your progression of farming urbanly and even in your own yard. And you'll get better and better, but you have to start with good soil and get hip the worms. Worms. I push the worms hard. Just go worms. Get some worms. Get you a bin. Get you a regular plastic bin. Get you some dirt. Get you some newspaper, some eggs, some banana peels, and just look online and find some worm. Find this worms for sale. That's another thing that I'm gonna start trying to do, Dr. Dunbar. I'm gonna try to make this easier. I'm worm farming myself. To me, that's the most important part of farming right now is the worm farming, because our soil is horrible in this country because we've not only is our air polluted, but all that air pollution falls down into our soil. So we need these worms to eat through this bad soil to give us good soil again, so that we can start farming good for our families.
Okay. Everyone, I put the link there in the chat if anyone wants to come up. But Herb, this is powerful, man. This is wow. You think about all the things you learn in school, but this, I mean, learning how to feed yourself and grow things. This is arguably one of the most important things we can learn. Okay, so Herb, just one more, at least for now. So the difference between dirt and soil is the soil has all the nutrients in it that the worms have prepared, or the dirt is just matter.
So dirt is like a precursor to soil.
Okay.
Like you were saying, like you can have regular, like what's like honestly, like it's weird. Like there's different variations of it. Like you have sand, which is what you would find like at like a beach or like a drier area. That's dried out. That's completely sun dried dirt to the point where it crystallizes like sand. That's like you can make glass out of it. And then you have dirt, just how it is. Then you have soil, which is the nutritional. So soil is the whole other side of sand. That's just like you can take sand and turn it into a dead product like glass, but you can take soil and turn it into a live product like a medium for growth.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's all about the convert. So dirt is important because it's all about the conversion of dirt. What do you convert dirt into? Do you sit there and let it turn into sand, and then you learn, then you convert it into a manufactured man-made product, or do you take that dirt and turn it into soil so that you can feed mankind?
Mm-hmm.
It's whichever one. I prefer to go to growers. I prefer to go to the farmers route, but of course you have the other side.
Okay. Looks like Sheet is here. I'll bring Sheet up.
What's up, Sheet?
What's going on, Sheet?
What's going on, fellas, man? It's just funny how you guys were talking about this, and I'm just started breaking down things in my head, like far as this. Can you actually hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm making sure I got a different headset on. But yeah, man, when it comes down to it, with all the breaking down of the soil, because I know typically when you used to go look for worms for fishing and stuff, you would have like this dry clay dirt in Georgia, pretty much no worms was around those areas. But then when you find like soil where the plants were growing and or by water, you see like the rich soil, and it kind of seemed like, as far as what you were talking about, Herb, when you had that ball like just dirt clay and all that, there was really too many no worms in there because it was dried up. But all the richer soil with plants, you had green life, worms were just vibrant all through there.
Yes, sir. And that's one of the amazing things about living in those areas and getting to do those things with your, like as a young man with your dad and everything, like catching worms, those little night crawlers, and putting them on a hook and catching catfish and going to the piers and catching. It's an amazing thing. But that's right. Those worms change. They do a lot.
Yeah, that's even also with like I used to know about growing like roses and stuff, and people would always say when you catch the fish and we get ready to cook the fish, we take the heads and the guts and put them in the ground to kind of grow the plants and everything, just like make it as compost, like you were talking about. And I see a lot of people like in the country when I used to go down to see my family, they would always have these barrels and just instead of taking the trash and taking it to the street, they would take the majority of the stuff, put it in there, like you saying about the plastic and stuff. They would kind of shred it up and then just drop it all in there too, mix it up and let it sit for a while, then go in the backyard, dig a hole, mix it up in that dirt, and then just let it sit.
As crazy as that sound, I remember doing that so much. It was fun actually to me. It was really, it's like like recycling through the city is not where it's at. Because what the city is going to do, they're going to stay on the other side. They're going to take the recycling and keep turning it into products, and products. We want to feed people. Well, I do anyway. I want people to eat. So I want to recycle towards feeding rather than production. You can go either way, but I prefer to go the country boy way and recycle towards production of eating.
So Irv, okay, let's unpack that a little bit. Are you saying the cities, they just want to recycle bottles back onto the shelf, or they want to reuse materials? Like what?
Yeah, it's forget the bottles. They want the metals. They want the they want they want the metals, the bottles, the plastic, of course the plastics. They want your, honestly, the stuff, the landfill is actually a gold mine for them because they're turning that all into production. And honestly, all that stuff can be turned into farming. That can be all those metals and plastics and old car seats. If you grind them and shred them and feed them to worms, it could feed people rather than create more products to put us more in debt. I'm going off on something else though.
Yeah, because I mean, it's crazy. I've actually been to landfills where I had to, take a lot of, I do a lot of things as far as junk removals sometimes. And for me to, when I have a trailer full of stuff or have, too much stuff on my pickup, they actually take me to the part where they on top of a mountainside to where they're actually dumping the stuff and kind of grinding it in and having big old excuse me, like big old bulldozers and stuff like that, kind of pushing the dirt on top of it and sinking it into these holes and stuff. And the soil up there is like rich. I mean, it's almost like when you're driving on, it's almost like squeezing water out because all those things that been over the time just been sliding, putting dirt over it and stuff. And they make it to the point where you don't go so far into it to where it kind of sink your tires, but they kind of generally keep you in a certain little area, man, because it's that soil is crazy up there.
Say it again, Reed. That soil is what up there?
It is crazy, man.
It
It's
is.
like I told you.
You seen the color of it? Have you seen the color of it? And the thing about it is, go ahead.
Now I'm just saying it's like jet black. Compared to the soil that we have out here, it's jet black.
It's jet black. It's called gold. They refer to it as gold. So what it is farmers will go to the broken down parts of landfills. This is a dirty secret of farming that most people don't know, is a lot of the soil from farms, they can get they rich fertilizing soils from these landfills. Because I guarantee if you go to a landfill, because I grew up in North Carolina, we used to go to a landfill all the time. And if you go dig, you ain't even got to dig deep into it. Man, they have so many worms at a landfill. It is ridiculous. Even the concrete landfills, even ones in Dallas, they got worms. They worms over there breaking stuff down. And we as the regular human beings are looking over what corporate recycling society is doing. We could recycle this to feed our families. They're recycling this to give us more products.
I don't know if you can answer this, but someone asked, Marvin asked, how many worms do we need? Yeah.
So it's all about this. So if you're trying to grow enough for just a small garden, let's say you have a couple of plants in your house that you're trying to garden, or you have like a garden bed outside or a tree outside. If you take a regular bin that you let's say those regular bins that you move in and out of, that you store stuff in, you got that your mama just throw all the old books and y'all just throw stuff in those bins. You can take those bins and you can grow right there in those bins. Just take you some worms, and you only need literally a cup full of worms in a regular size bin, like a 30-40 gallon bin that you can buy from Walmart or that you put shoes in. And honestly, if you want to, you can even get you a box, a moving box. Put some dirt in that. Put some dirt and some worms and some newspaper in that, and the worms will end up breaking down and eating through all of that. So you won't be able to collect your worm juice, but you'll have good soil. And if you want to collect the worm juice, just get you a plastic bin and go to work. I'm gonna actually build a worm bin in the next 2 weeks, and then I'm gonna actually, when I build it, I'm gonna record it and I'm gonna send it to, and I'll email it to you so that we can, and then I'll actually put it on my channel and email it to you, because I haven't been making any content, because this is what I'm really, really focusing on, is getting the worms going, because I realized I can grow and put seeds in the ground all day, but if my worms and my soil are not going the way that it should, it's pointless. And that's a grower's mistake. That's a mistake that I made, and I don't want other people to make that mistake. So get the soil and the worms first. We'll get the seeds and put them in the ground, sure, but get the soil through the worms first.
Okay, so you can't grow without good soil. Go ahead,
And
Sheep.
I also want to talk about, that's why you have I think Tupac made a book, the roads that grew through the concrete. I think that's one of his poems, and it speaks to that, to where the soil being so rich upon the certain concretes, and if you get that little crack in between there, that sunlight, that water keeps going down in there, and all it takes one seed, plants grow right up. Like it's just amazing to people to see that. Like even when you have cracked driveways and you start to see plants and kind of green life going through those, it's rich with the soil.
Yep, because one thing about it is, if you so check this, yo. So when you was a kid, let me ask you a question. When you lifted up a stone or a brick, what was the first thing you saw under it?
Yeah, worms, little centipedes, all they were just scattering around, man.
Yeah, I saw that in Buffalo too.
Yep.
Exactly. So they down there doing their job. We just ain't using them. It's like, man, it's like, I hate to do this, but I want to compare the black man to the worm, bro. It's like we down there doing our job, but we ain't being used right. And once we start using these worms right, we own, man. We just got to start using these worms in the soil right. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it kind of goes back to, different things, to where when we were younger, we did all these things, but as we grew up, and kind of moved into the city, we forgot about that type of lifestyle. That's like when my kids, that's why I told, I'm in the process of looking for land down here where I'm at. Now I don't even want, like, I can get a house that's perfect, have the land with my house, but just general land for sale. That's why I want to find just, an acre, not even a whole acre, a quarter of an acre, just like a little small plot where I can throw about 5,000 or something into it, and just have that land to where I can just have a little grow field. Because in certain areas over here where I stay at, they have like community gardens, to where people just come over there. They have their little section to where they grow their own plants, and then certain days they sit down and they kind of share the plants with each other. You might be growing some potatoes and somebody might be growing some cabbage or something, and you can kind of share the vegetables with each other.
It's so amazing because you know what, the big C, they will sit here and tell you that the gun is the great equalizer, or money is the great equalizer. No, it's not. It's being able to eat and have some warmthness through food, through soups, through good cuts of meat, through good vegetables, through soothing the internal insides of your body. That is true wealth, and that's where people really come together. Like like I love that garden. Like we had this thing when I was growing up in North Carolina called sharecropping, and I know, and not sharecropping, but the honor system. They went I'm not sharecropping, the honor system, where like every year after the farmers went through the fields, they'll let people come through and pick all the rest of the potatoes and yams that they didn't pick up. And you didn't even have to give any money for that. But if someone was growing like collards or squash or anything in their backyard, you can literally go in their backyard, get a collard, put $1 into a drop box on their front porch, and walk off, and nobody cared. But I don't know what happened to that society. And I'm 33. And when I say that, people say, "Are you what? What you 80, 100?" No, I'm 33. Where did that society come from? Why do we lose that society where people were literally having farms or homesteads in their backyards? And I'm talking about, Dr. Dunbar, and she. I'm talking about. I ain't talking about these people had acres of acres of. They have acreage. They had like a man. They had like a plot, but they had a couple of rows of collards, some cucumbers, some squash, tomatoes. They had something always to be able to, and then they have a pig over in the corner, or a goat in the corner, or some free range chickens. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what happened to that society, man. I really don't know what happened to it, but I really miss it.
Well, Irv, like as with most things, city living became the thing, and also, with all the technology we have, things just kind of went away. But I think as we're seeing now, there are weaknesses to what we have right now, and it's important to think about those older days and the things that we used to know, the things we used to do, in light of what's been going on this year. So we assume, we assume the food's going to be there in the supermarket when we go, but if you had to feed yourself, and things break down, what would you do?
And that's the reason why I really want to do this. And I want to do this so much more, especially I'm of course I'm gonna do the farming, but the worms is like I'm that's like my number one thing right now. And that's like my number one thing, period, because I know what they can do. And it's more we have to feed ourselves, but it's more than that, Dr. Dunbar. We have to I'm not necessarily going to talk about, I don't know, political stuff like global warming, internet stuff, any of that stuff. All I know is we have a world that needs to be cleaned. And I know that the worms can help. They can help a lot. The ocean's the ocean's turning and tiding all it can to clean, but we are overworking it. Let the worms help us. We need to let the worms help us. They're helpers, not haters. We have to let them help. So everyone needs that should be, everyone should start growing worms. Everyone should start getting them some worms, or start worm farming. That could be a new black industry. Worms and worm farming, because we have to get soil on this earth. We have to get we don't need dirt, we need soil. We don't need dirt, we don't need sand, we need soil. We got enough beaches.
I was just thinking about the saying, small minds talk about people, medium-sized minds talk about current events, and large minds think about ideas. So these are some huge ideas that you've brought here and discussed. Irv, do you have a channel? Do you want to? You mentioned it, but do you have a channel where you talk about some of this stuff some more, or are you planning to create content on it? Irv, you there?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, do you have a channel of your own where you're going to talk about this some more, or are you planning on?
Well, actually, my actual channel now is fully, because I used to do I had two accounts called No Sweetheart. And one account I used to talk about, I had just recently got a divorce and I was going through my red pill rage, and I was just making information about how women do this, how women do that, women this, women that, this anger, right? And I'm actually going to change. My platform is going to stop being about that content. Actually, it is going to be fully about farming worms. So the No Sweetheart Irv Gotti production will pretty much be nothing but farming of worms and botany, and that's coming up within like the next 2 or 3 weeks. Because right now, like I said, I'm gonna send you the when I video record me making this worm bin and how to do it, so that we can show brothers how to do it, and we can start just pumping it to brothers how to make a worm bin. So so I went through my little red pill rage. Now I'm all about how we build up the community and make what really counts count. Because my son gonna always come to me regardless. I've already went through that rage and seen that. So this is me on the other side, seeing how I can build rather than stay in anger.
Okay. Well, everyone watching, this is important. I mean, not just Herb has introduced some economic aspects, some ecological aspects, and as I said in the first hour, these are areas when I was in college that I overlooked. Well, you know what? I don't want to say that I overlooked them, but based upon where I came from, I only thought about science in the context of human health and going to medical school and that whole galaxy. And there's nothing wrong if that's what you want to do. But I think one of the things I want to communicate through this channel is that science is broad and there are other aspects as well. So you gonna say something?
I wasn't trying to throw a complete shot at the medical field because I work in the medical field. All I'm saying is there's other ways, and it starts from the ground. Like like when they say you got it from the mud. This is literally getting it from the mud, man. That's all this is another way to get it from the mud.
Well, Irv, no, I don't think you were throwing shots at the medical field. I mean, it's been discussed for a while now if, for example, our current methods and our current paradigm for treating disease, it's been questioned for a while if that's the right way to go. Artificial medications, drugs, pharmaceuticals, or is that the way we should be going, or should we be looking more at natural methods and preventative measures as well? So that's not a shot at them. And it's been discussed that it's the goal of the industry to keep people sick and to keep people going back for more treatment and more drugs and those kinds of things. So you didn't say anything that hasn't been suggested already in other places.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the medical system is understanding that. That's just why they have something called the DO, a doctor of osteopathy, and they learn Eastern and Western medication. Because what we're talking about is nothing but Eastern sciences, where the sun rises and starts feeding crops. Because you look at those Eastern dry areas, they still are able to bring their people some type of vegetation. They do have a mainly carnivore type where they eat a lot of meat diets, but they're still able, and rice, but they're still able to bring vegetation to those people in those dry areas. And we live in America, the area of commerce. There's water running throughout this mofo. There's worms, there's grass, there's soil, there's decomposed. There's so much that we are gifted with based off just the land of this country. That is black men. Let's start taking. I'm not saying let's become like rah 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 America, but realize the ground you stand on, man, means something. Down to the worms that's in it.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, we'll go for about 12 more minutes, and then I'll shut things down. I have some other things to get into today. Do either of you, Irv, was there anything we missed in terms of worms and soil? And I mean, I've learned a lot from what you said over the last hour, and I'll be thinking about this today. And until we do this again, is there anything?
I'm about to say we're gonna have to do this again. We're gonna have to do a part 2 because I don't really feel like I answered the question of botany, because I we was probably supposed to talk about plants, right?
Well, I mean, based upon everything you discussed, I just wanted to, I want this channel to not just be on what I know, and which is the biomedical aspects. I want to spread it out and bring other things in. So even just discussing the importance of worms and understanding what soil is versus dirt, that's adding to our body of knowledge. So that's okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Because I don't really feel like I answered the complete question of botany. I really feel like there's more we can go into about worms, but I'm going to put a whole segment where I'm showing the actual work rather than talking about it for the brothers, and I'll like definitely send that to you and make sure we keep this going because I mean you country boys got some worms out there, man. Even you city guys got some worms. Get to working with them. They can work for you rather than you work for them. And they're working for you right now. You just don't even realize it. Actually, get them out the ground and make them work for you. It's like no, it's like check this. Like I like silver and gold, so I invest in that. Right? Somebody went and got that silver, that gold, that platinum, that copper. They got it out the ground and they made it work for them, and it sits still. Imagine what getting something out the ground that actually moves and squiggles and moves around does for you. It will continue to work for you over and over and over again. It doesn't just sit still like a material, it continues to work.
Okay. Well, with that, do you have anything else you want to say while we're up here?
No, that's it. I'm just along for the ride. I like the conversation.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do this again. Irv, when you upload those videos on the worms, I will definitely take a look, and we'll reconnect again, and talk some. We'll pull in some of the botany and some of the other aspects as well. So we'll just kind of keep building this out.
Yes, sir. It sounds like an amazing thing. And once the brothers see how fun it can be, it's all about culture and making things cool. So let's make it
Yes.
cool, man.
And when I'm from the east side of Buffalo. We weren't thinking about these things. When you grow up in the city, you all you know is the city. And you take things for granted, and that's all you know. But as you've described, there's a whole other way of doing things out there. You don't know that if someone doesn't explain it to you, you don't know that those things underneath the rock, when you pull it up, you don't know what they do. You don't know that they have a purpose. You just know that they're moving around. They're kind of yucky, and oh my God, let me put this rock back down. But those things actually have a purpose for us. And as you've described, there are people who are generating profit off those things.
Big profit, and it's legal profit. And you can hustle. I mean, and that's something. And brothers, and look at this, brothers. You don't have to re up on this. This reads up on itself. They create their own babies. You don't have to go re up on this. Get shot in your back to do this. You can re up on this because it reads up on itself. All you got to do is feed it leaves and keep it. All you do is keep it rolling right there. And you don't have to re up on this. You don't have to run out here and get yourself in trouble. This is just another way. And even as a healthcare professional, I'm doing okay. But this is just another way that I'm looking at too, because it can create. If you look it up, Google it. Worm farming can make you 60 to 100 grand. Just Google it. 60 to 100 grand. That's not a bad side hustle, brothers. Let's Google it, brothers. 60 to 100 grand you can make off worm farming. Just Google it, brothers.
Okay. Well, with that, we will conclude, and I'll shut this down. If you're watching on the playback, hey, Irv, thank you for coming up. Yeah, Irv, thank you for lending your expertise to this discussion. So this gave me an opportunity to build out a whole other section of the channel. And if you've thank you to everyone who is watching live, and thank you to everyone will watch this on the playback. On the first hour, I talked about I kind of hopped all over the place, in terms of botany and ecology and the agrosciences and those kinds of things. And Irv Gotti gave us a lesson on worms and soil and how that fits into the whole thing. This has a major ecology theme to it. So yeah, if you're watching on the playback, please like, please share, and subscribe. If you want to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below this video. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and everyone have a good week. Stay safe, and as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and we will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, fellas.
All right.